Welcome to Snail Story Channel. How has your day been? I hope you're finding moments of peace, even in the middle of everything. Sometimes the end of a love story isn't a failure. It's a beginning in disguise. This space is for those who've loved deeply, broken quietly, and still believe that something beautiful can grow from the cracks. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Your voice truly matters here. Today's story is about healing, rediscovery, and the unexpected joy that can bloom after goodbye. Take a breath, settle in. Let me tell you what happened next. I placed Ellie, my daughter, just discharged from the hospital after her fever finally broke, into the back seat, carefully choosing the spot without any breadcrumbs. I reached for a tissue, about to wipe it down. Then Matthew Blake snapped, his voice sharp with irritation. "Grace, didn't I ask you to just let things go a little? Can you please stop wasting time on these petty things? You're a mess most days and now suddenly you care about cleanliness?" His annoyed eyes glared at me through the rearview mirror, pausing briefly on my face, then landing on my hands, sun-darkened, rough, and cracked, hands that had worked year-round, calloused, coarse, stained in ways no amount of scrubbing could ever fully erase. Suddenly I remembered what he'd said on the phone with his friends last night, assuming I'd already fallen asleep. Grace Taylor 4 years ago, she was okay. But now, she's turning into a frumpy, penny-pinching housewife. She'll argue over a bunch of cilantro that costs a few damn cents. Even that kid Ellie, she's being raised all wrong, dirty and wild. Walking down the street with the two of them? God, it's embarrassing. If Vanessa Moore's parents hadn't forced her to go to Europe and break things off, her daughter Harper, beautiful, clean Harper, would be calling me Dad by now. Why did I marry Grace, please, to shut my family up? She seemed like the safest bet back then, and yeah, she was obedient, cooperative. But now, there's nothing left between us. If it weren't for the kids, I'd have divorced her ages ago. I let out a dry laugh, still brushing the crumbs off the seat. I wanted to sweep away more than just crumbs. I wanted to clear out every last piece of garbage around me. "Grace!" Matthew snapped again, more annoyed this time. "How long are you going to keep dragging this out? Stop wasting everyone's time." When I'd called and asked him to pick us up from the hospital, he was out shopping at the mall with Vanessa and her daughter. The irritation was obvious the moment he answered the phone. Ellie sat still, her wide, frightened eyes flicking toward her dad. Then she leaned close and whispered in my ear, "Mom, stop wiping. Dad's mad. He's not going to take us home if you keep going." She tugged the corner of my shirt and snuck another glance at Matthew. My heart ached. She was just a little girl. And yet she already knew how to read her father's mood, already learning how to adjust herself. All I could feel was a deep sadness and guilt. I was the one who had let this man get so used to disrespecting us, so comfortable tearing us down in plain sight. Afraid Matthew might blow up again and scare Ellie, I quickly wiped off the crumbs and slid into my seat. On the drive home, Matthew got a phone call from none other than Vanessa Moore. I didn't say a word, not in front of our daughter. I didn't want to start anything. When we were about 4 kilometers from home, near Four-Way Plaza, Matthew suddenly pulled over and turned to me. "You and Ellie can catch a cab from here. It's easy to get a ride here." I looked down at Ellie, still fast asleep in my arms, then looked up, stunned. "What? Why? It'll take at least 40 minutes to get a cab here." Before he could answer, I glanced out the window, and there she was, Vanessa, with her daughter Harper, standing right there on the sidewalk next to a pile of shopping bags. I let out a bitter laugh. So that's why he kept rushing me. For a second I actually thought he was in a hurry because his parents might be hungry. Turns out he was just anxious to pick someone else up. "You're kicking us out of the car, your sleeping daughter, so you can pick them up." Matthew scowled, his tone annoyed. "If you hadn't suddenly called me, saying you couldn't get a ride near the hospital, I would have brought them home already." I stared at him, the fury rising in my chest. "So they're your family now? And what are Ellie and I, extras? Is Ellie just my daughter? You weren't there when she was sick, didn't lift a finger. You didn't even come when she was discharged. So tell me, what kind of father are you supposed to be? A display model? Grace, don't be ridiculous. I came to pick you and Ellie up, didn't I? Whose car do you think you're sitting in right now? And when Ellie was sick, I had meetings, deadlines. You want me to split myself in two? I laughed, a dry, bitter, exhausted laugh. 6 years of marriage. 5 of those years, Matthew was grinding to build his company. It wasn't until this year he finally started making money, rented an office, bought a car, and started calling himself a CEO. And for 6 long years, I paid for everything. First, with my full-time job. Then, after Ellie was born. His mother promised to help with the baby. But his father broke his leg, and she went back home and never came back. And me? I'm an orphan. I had no one. So I quit my job, strapped Ellie to my back, and started selling vegetables at the Brookfield Farmers Market just to keep food on our table. This car he's so proud of, the one that makes him look respectable, more than 2/3 of it was paid for with my money, and now he has the audacity to bark at me. Whose car do you think you're in? He says he can't split himself in two to take care of his kid? What a joke. A cruel, maddening joke. When anger boils over, your brain throws memories at you like a flood. And I remembered something I'd heard a few days ago. Grace, you don't have to sacrifice everything just to earn a sliver of someone else's affection. If they have a conscience, fine. If they don't, you're just going to stay in a lopsided relationship, being crushed over and over again. The person who said that? Caleb Brooks, the new guy selling fish at the market. He's only been around for 3 months. That day I was holding Ellie, waving from the sidewalk, trying to get Matthew's attention as he drove past the market. I shouted, "Matthew, I'm almost done packing up. Wait a second. We'll go home together." He didn't even glance in my direction, just kept driving. Back then I naively thought he hadn't heard me. But looking back now, that whole not hearing thing, it's been happening ever since Ellie was born. Not once, not twice, too many times to count. Even Caleb, someone who's barely known me for a few months, had already seen it happen at least 3 times. I was the fool. I thought Caleb's words were a warning, like he was drawing a line. Especially after Mid-Autumn Festival, when he gave me a bag of crabs, broken clawed ones, unsellable. As someone who grew up without love or family, I always overreacted to kindness. Just a little warmth, and I'd give everything I had in return. With Matthew, who was gentle for the first 2 years we dated, I gave it all. With Caleb, who gave me a bag of leftover crabs, I did the same. I brought him fresh veggies, helped him pack up every day. Caleb's a young guy, popular with all the girls at the market. Some of them whispered behind my back, saying I was double-dipping. So when Caleb said that line, my first thought was, he's warning me, telling me not to get the wrong idea. But now, thinking back, maybe Caleb, an outsider, saw the imbalance in my marriage more clearly than I did. He couldn't meddle. So he used that one sentence to wake me up. "Matthew!" Vanessa Moore walked over as soon as she spotted our car. She opened the door and froze for a split second when she saw me sitting inside, but she didn't greet me. Instead, she turned to Matthew with a smile. "Oh, so Grace is here too?" "Never mind then. Harper and I will just grab a cab." Matthew quickly objected. "No way. I told you I'd take you home, and I meant it." Vanessa glanced at me, her tone casual, but laced with poison. "But I bought a lot of stuff. There might not be enough space in the car, right? Besides, you've broken promises before, haven't you? Is it really worth fussing over this?" Matthew's face went from calm to furious in a heartbeat. His eyes flared red with rage. "This time I'm not backing out." He turned to me, and in his eyes, I saw it. That sharp warning. "Grace, don't make this harder than it needs to be. Vanessa just got back to the country. She doesn't know many people, she's got a ton of stuff, and it's already late. It's not safe for her and Harper to be out trying to find a taxi. Just be understanding, okay? Take Ellie and head out. That, okay? It wasn't a question. It was a command. Just like always, and just like always. I'd listened, but not today. Today, I'm not the woman I used to be. The moment I decided to clean out all the garbage from my life, I stopped being the woman who kept her head down and swallowed her pride. I lifted my chin, looked Matthew Blake dead in the eye, and shot back. And what about Ellie and me? You think it's safe for the two of us to catch a cab this late? Matthew jumped to respond. You and Ellie are different. No one's gonna— He cut himself off because he wasn't ready to tear off that moral mask just yet. Vanessa pretended not to hear a thing. She turned to Harper by the curb and started chatting. I'm not sure when Harper had woken up, but suddenly she burst into tears. Then when she saw Matthew's cold, impatient stare, she immediately pressed her lips together and fell silent. And I knew exactly what Matthew hadn't finished saying. No one's going to hurt you two. Because in his eyes, we weren't worth protecting. Since Vanessa came back into the picture, ever since he reconnected with her and Harper, Matthew had become colder and colder toward his own daughter. He used to fake it, act like he cared, call once in a while. Ask how she was doing now. He didn't even bother pretending. He just sneered. Compared Ellie to Harper. Ellie's so dark, doesn't have the fair skin or grace Harper has. Well, what did he expect? Ellie spent the last 4 years out in the sun, in the rain, helping her mother sell vegetables. How the hell was she supposed to stay fair in that man, the one standing over there, always pretending to be noble? He never truly valued me, or our daughter. He says he hasn't filed for divorce because of his responsibility as a father. No, he hasn't filed for divorce because he still isn't sure about Vanessa. He's afraid to lose everything. I didn't see it before. Because I still loved him. Because he still knew how to hide. But now I see it all. I won't believe another word from this man. A man who talks about love but never once backed it up with action. I won't let him humiliate me one more time. And I sure as hell won't let him flaunt his power in front of my daughter. What I want now is to end this lopsided hollow marriage. Goodbye, Matthew Blake. I shot Matthew a quick glance. Holding Ellie tight against my chest, I leaned down, kissed her tiny cheek, and whispered softly in her ear, Ellie, from today on, we don't need Daddy anymore, okay? Her eyes widened in surprise before she burst out, Really, Mom? We can really do that? But the moment she noticed Vanessa and Matthew looking, she quickly snuggled quietly into my arms again. I pinched her little nose gently and smiled. Yes, sweetheart. When Mommy says something, she means it. Then I stepped out of the car, Ellie in my arms. I walked over to the driver's side window, bent down, and looked straight into Matthew Blake's eyes. He was still sitting there, frozen. I smiled. Well, what are you waiting for? Go help her with the bags. Matthew stared at me, stunned. Maybe for a moment, some tiny sliver of conscience flickered inside him. He pulled out his phone and said, Let me call you a cab. But before I could answer, Vanessa Moore jumped in. Matthew, don't bother. I really need to get home. Don't worry about me. Just take Grace and Ellie home. She's not carrying much, but it's hard to catch a cab with a kid in your arms. And honestly, if you break your promise again, I won't hold it against you anymore. How can I just let it go? Matthew stammered. I said I would. He stopped mid-sentence, locked his phone, and turned to face her. His eyes were starting to burn red. Even though Vanessa was saying, Don't worry about it, she didn't move an inch. She stayed standing right there next to the car, clearly not planning to leave. I looked at the two of them, facing each other, their eyes tangled in some web of old memories. And suddenly I laughed. You know what? Why don't Ellie and I just take a cab ourselves? Matthew, forget the ride. Go help her with those bags. My words snapped Matthew out of his daze. He blinked, nodded automatically, and headed to the sidewalk. Vanessa looked momentarily thrown off. She probably hadn't expected me to let go so easily. No drama, no tears, no begging, no blaming anyone. She gave me a quick look before quietly following Matthew toward her daughter. I quickly placed Ellie in the back seat, buckled her in, and reminded her not to roll the window down while the car was moving. Then I gently shut the door. Sliding into the driver's seat, I shut the door and locked it. Then I rolled down the passenger window, leaned out, and shouted toward the curb, "Hey, Matthew Blake, Vanessa Moore!" They both paused mid-lift, turning, back in confusion. I turned to Ellie. "Sweetie, cover your ears." She immediately raised her tiny hands and clamped them over both ears. Then I turned back to the couple, smiled coldly, raised my middle finger high, and yelled, "You two are a match made in garbage, one heartless bastard and one cheap excuse for a woman. Absolutely perfect for each other. Screw the both of you." With that, I turned the key, hit the gas, and drove off, leaving two pale faces and one broken illusion in the rearview mirror. The car had barely rolled a few blocks when my phone started vibrating. Matthew Blake was calling. I ignored it. Didn't even glance at the screen. He was probably worked up, and I had no intention of arguing in front of Ellie. We got home just as the clock hit 8 p.m. Matthew's parents were in the living room watching TV. Their health had been declining steadily over the past 2 years. Earlier this year, when our finances finally got a bit more stable, I gave up our dingy one-bedroom and rented a modest 2-bedroom apartment, just so we could move them in from Minnesota to live with us in Boston. As I carried Ellie into the house, they didn't even bother to turn around. Just asked half-heartedly, "Is the kid better yet?" Then, eyes back on the screen, "What are you standing there for? Go make dinner." This time I didn't answer, and I didn't go to the kitchen either. I walked straight into the bedroom and started packing our things, mine and Ellie's. I never liked Matthew's parents. Living under the same roof, I'd come to see it clearly. They couldn't stand my daughter. Not just cold and distant, they took every opportunity to pester me about having a second child. And more than once, I overheard them mutter, "Matthew's company needs a son to inherit it one day." Back then, for Matthew's sake, I bit my tongue. I tried to be respectful. I didn't want to cause tension. But now, I didn't owe them anything anymore. As I moved back and forth, hauling bags and boxes toward the door, they started getting suspicious. "Grace, what do you think you're doing?" I didn't hide it. Didn't bother explaining. Just said one sentence. "I'm taking out the trash." When they saw our clothes in the bags, their expressions soured instantly. They exchanged a look, and then the mother-in-law spat out, "Ungrateful little wretch." I ignored her. I wasn't going to be dragged into another pointless fight. I just kept loading the car, box after box, bag after bag. By the time everything was packed, it was nearly 9 p.m. During all that time, they'd called Matthew over, probably to tattle. "Your wife didn't cook dinner." But the truth? They were perfectly capable of cooking for themselves. They weren't bedridden. They weren't disabled. They were just used to being waited on. Since they moved in, they'd treated me, a woman who woke up at dawn to haul vegetables, worked the market till 7:30 p.m., came home and took care of a young child, as if making their dinner was some divine obligation. In their eyes, their son was a successful businessman, and I, an orphaned vegetable vendor, was lucky to be clinging to their son's coattails, reaping the benefits. They never once thought about how I was the one biking across town at dawn to pick up, produce, standing at the stall all day until evening, coming home bone-tired and still mothering a child. But tonight, when they realized I wasn't backing down, that I wasn't picking up Matthew's calls, and I sure as hell wasn't making dinner, they finally gave in and made themselves instant noodles. By the time Matthew Blake stormed through the front door, I was holding Ellie, just about to step out of the bedroom. His parents were still in the living room, quietly slurping their noodles. The moment I heard the door slam and his voice explode across the house, I knew tonight was going to be war. I turned back, placed Ellie gently on the bed, and whispered, "Cover your ears. Count to 500 before you let go." "Got it?" She nodded obediently. I shut the bedroom door behind me, took a deep breath, and walked out. I hadn't expected him back this soon. In my mind, the plan was simple. Matthew would take Vanessa and Harper home, and return later, at the earliest maybe 10:30 p.m. By then, Ellie and I would be long gone, but life doesn't follow your plans. So now, I deal with it as it came. When I stepped into the living room, his parents were complaining to him between bites of their instant noodles. Matthew's face was pitch black with rage. The moment he saw me, he barked, "Grace, you need to apologize to Vanessa and Harper. Now!" I froze. Even his parents looked surprised, probably still hoping he'd take their side. His father asked, confused, "Matthew, what's going on?" Matthew waved him off. "Dad, I'll deal with you later." I let out a laugh, watery, bitter. So even his own parents didn't matter now. Vanessa Moore outranked everyone. He stormed toward me, about to grab my arm. I dodged and snapped coldly. "Are you insane, Matthew? Apologize? And why exactly should I apologize?" "Because you screamed obscenities at them. In front of Harper. Now the kid's screaming at her mom, saying their divorce was because she cheated with me. You need to apologize, and you need to explain the truth to that child." I laughed. Again, but this time with pure contempt. "Oh, did I lie? Aren't you two the perfect trashy pair? If I hadn't seen you flirting right in front of me, would I have said anything? Grace, stop slandering us. Vanessa and I are innocent. I won't let you insult her." "Innocent? You're both over 30 and you still don't know how to set boundaries with someone else's husband? Stop pretending. It's disgusting. You called me dirty? Cheap? The real filth here is you two." "Grace, shut your damn mouth. You don't deserve to say her name," Matthew screamed, and threw a bowl of noodles straight at me. I tried to move, but his parents grabbed my arms. Crack! The bowl smashed right into my head, shattering on the floor. I felt something hot and sticky trickle down my face. Blood, running from my forehead, down my cheek. I was dizzy for a moment. Then I looked up and saw Ellie standing in the bedroom doorway, eyes wide with terror. She saw the blood and burst into sobs, running toward me. "Don't hurt my mom. Don't bully my mom. Go back inside," Matthew roared at her. That was it. That was the final straw. I broke free from his parents' grip, slapped them both across the face, kicked one in the knee, and shoved them aside. I flipped the dining table. Then I grabbed the top and slammed it down onto Matthew's head. Stunned and bleeding, he stumbled, but still tried to lunge at me. "Grace, don't think you can just walk away. If you don't apologize, you won't live in peace."
Ellie, still trembling, suddenly screamed back, her little voice strong and fierce. "If you ever hit my mom again, when I grow up and join the army, I'll shoot you." I didn't know whether to cry or laugh, but Matthew lost it completely. "This
is the daughter you raised? No manners, no respect. Give her to me. I'll teach her how to behave." He lunged again, trying to snatch Ellie from my arms. I had already reached the bedroom door. I shoved Ellie inside and slammed it shut, locking it. Then I turned around, rolled up my sleeves, and growled, "You want to hit someone? Fine, let me show. You—" Not every man deserves to be called a father. I'm 5'9". Matthew's 5'11". But he's lanky, weak, and I've worked with my hands all my life. My arms were strong, my body solid. It didn't take long before I had him pinned. Furniture started flying. Fridge, TV, lamps, dishes, almost everything shattered. Most of it I had paid for. His parents tried to jump in and help. One slipped on a banana, peel from the fridge. The other tripped over Matthew and face-planted. Both of them ended up gasping for breath on the floor, unable to get up. I grabbed Matthew by the hair and slapped him again and again. I was about to land a final brutal kick when a heavy hand grabbed my collar from behind and yanked me backward. I swung instinctively, nails out. Then I turned around and froze. A uniformed cop stood behind me, handcuffs in one hand. Two more officers stood at the door. A neighbor had called the cops. Apparently the house had been shaking with noise, and we'd woken up half the block. After the ER doctor finished patching me up, My forehead was wrapped tight in a clean white bandage. I held Ellie close, her small body fast asleep in my arms, my face lowered, eyes glued to the floor. All I could think about was one thing. I prayed. The precinct chief, standing not far from me, didn't recognize me. Because I recognized him, Caleb Stone, my nemesis from the orphanage. He was taller now, broader, sharper looking. But that face, it was still unmistakably him, the same Caleb Stone. Back then, he and I couldn't stand each other. Grades, behavior, who got noticed by sponsors. Everything between us was a competition, constant rivalry, constant tension, always trying to one-up each other, and most of the time. It ended in a draw, but in junior year his birth parents suddenly showed up. That's when I finally understood the things he used to say. That before age 3 doesn't count. Turned out he was telling the truth. His father had been an alcoholic, already dead. His mother had remarried and didn't want to raise him. Both were involved in shady business, and yet when he left the orphanage they threw him a farewell like he was some kind of hero. He walked out all proud, chin held high, new little brother in tow, and before leaving, he turned back and sneered at me. "Grace, you're just abandoned trash. No one wants you. You'll never be better than me again." I couldn't take it. I snapped. I lunged at him, fists flying. Neither of us won that fight, but his words cut deep, and I left scratches all over his face. After that, he left with his parents. We never saw each other again, until now. Now he's a police precinct chief, and me, I'm here for beating up my husband and disturbing the peace, getting scolded in front of his subordinates. God. I had never felt more humiliated in my life. I lifted Ellie slightly higher in my arms, using her small body to shield my face, because I truly didn't know if Caleb recognized me yet. When the younger officers finished their lecture on community disturbance, they turned to me and asked, "Ma'am, do you want to press charges against Matthew Blake and his family?" I hadn't even answered when they glanced at the others, who frankly looked worse than I did, and immediately dropped the question. But of course, my in-laws weren't about to let things go. They rushed forward, shouting at the officers, "She assaulted an elderly couple. Lock her up. Throw her in jail. If you don't deal with her, we're going to file a complaint with the state." Then, as if auditioning for a soap opera, they flung themselves dramatically onto the precinct floor, wailing and crying like they were dying. And they dragged Matthew into the mess too, urging him to side with them and demand justice. Matthew Blake, who had always been obsessed with saving face, was already humiliated just stepping into a police station. He had quietly asked the officers earlier, "Is there any way I don't have to be here in person?" Now, seeing his parents rolling on the floor like toddlers, he looked like he wanted the earth to swallow him whole. He shouted, "That's enough! Can you please stop embarrassing me in front of everyone?" The entire precinct fell silent. Even the young officers looked relieved. One of them sighed and said, "All right, everyone gather your things and head home. Next time this turns into a public scene, it won't just be a warning." Matthew nodded furiously, swearing it would never happen again. Then, without saying another word to anyone, he pushed through the crowd and walked straight out of the station answering his phone. I figured it was Vanessa Moore. While we were getting our lecture, I saw him decline her calls more than once. His parents scrambled to their feet and ran after him, two frail shadows hobbling behind him like ghosts. As for me, I had no intention of going home with them. I waited until they were completely out of sight. Then I tightened my arms around Ellie and slowly stood up. Grace Taylor. I had barely stepped out of the police station when I heard someone call my name. It was Caleb Stone. I pretended not to hear, tightening my hold on Ellie and walking quickly toward the exit. But after just a few steps, a wall of muscle blocked our path. "Grace," he repeated. Realizing I had no escape, I lifted, my head annoyed. "What now?" "Where are you going? I'll take you both," he said. And his voice wasn't sarcastic like I expected. It was calm, almost sincere. I forced a smile. "No need. There's a hotel nearby, just a few blocks away. We'll manage. Thanks, though." Caleb stared at me for a moment, then nodded. "All right." But he didn't move. Still stood there, blocking the way. I sighed and stepped around him. "Okay then, we'll go." "Wait," he called from behind. "Me?" I turned back. His expression shifted, more serious now. He took a deep breath and said suddenly, "I'm sorry." "What?" I blinked, confused. "For what I said back at the orphanage. For calling you unwanted. Saying no. One needed you." He scratched the back of his neck, looking sheepish. A little flushed. I froze. Just stood there, stunned. "I've thought about it," he said. "Now that I'm older, I know how awful that was. Honestly, Grace, I'm sorry. I hope you can. Accept the apology, even if it's late." He bowed his head deeply. "Grace." A bitter voice cut through from behind. It was Matthew Blake. He had just returned from taking a call, no doubt from Vanessa, and now he was yelling across the parking lot. "If you don't apologize to them, I'll officially file for divorce. Handle yourself from now on." But as he walked closer and saw Caleb, the precinct chief, bowing to me, he froze, like someone had slapped him across the face. That brief moment of respect I got was instantly overshadowed by the disgust I felt just seeing Matthew. I glanced at him, half contempt, half indifference, and then something clicked in my mind. I turned to Caleb with a sweet smile. "You said you'd take me home, right?" I lightly pinched his arm, feigning closeness. "182 Oak Ridge Street, is that on your way?" It was the address of the house Matthew and I rented together. Caleb glanced at me, then at Matthew. I gave him a hopeful look. He nodded and smiled. "Sure, hop in." I turned to Matthew, loud and clear for everyone to hear. "Fine by me. Divorce it is. Let's do it tomorrow. Whoever backs out is the coward." Then I got into Caleb's car. When Caleb dropped me and Ellie back at the house, Matthew and his parents still hadn't returned. I thanked Caleb. We chatted briefly. For the first time in years, just like two normal people. Then I got into the SUV I'd already loaded with bags and drove Ellie to a hotel far away from that place. On the way, my phone buzzed. A message from Matthew. "What's your relationship with that precinct chief? Why did he bow to you?" I almost typed, "None of your business." But then I thought, if I could use Caleb's name to keep Matthew from pulling anything during the divorce, why not? So I replied, "He's my cousin. On my mother's side." He didn't recognize me at first. Once he did, he apologized for some old things between us. Matthew responded quickly, "Cousin? I thought you were an orphan." I didn't even blink as I made up the next line. His dad's cousin used to be my foster guardian. I started calling him cousin back in high school. Didn't think it was worth mentioning before. "Is that true?" He texted back, clearly suspicious. I replied, "You can ask him yourself." After that, nothing. The screen stayed quiet. I turned it off, didn't care anymore. Focused on the road. Focused on getting Ellie somewhere safe. That night, after I settled Ellie into bed at the hotel, I received one last message from Matthew. "How do you want to split the assets?" I wrote back, "Ellie stays with me. The vegetable stall is mine. Your company stays yours. Leave me the car, and I want you to transfer $50,000 to me." Matthew's design firm had gained some recognition lately, but his income was unstable. If he hadn't landed a few big projects last year, he'd have gone bankrupt again. That $50,000, it was the amount I'd poured into helping him start the company. I wanted every cent back, and then I'd disappear from his life for good. The typing indicator on the screen blinked. Typing. 5 minutes passed. I was tired. Too tired to wait. I put the phone down and lay on the bed. Just as my head hit the pillow, the message came in. "AM tomorrow. Boston Family Court. We'll finalize the divorce. I accept all. Your terms. I sat still for a while, eyes fixed on the glowing phone screen in the dark room. Just a few short lines, but they felt like a cold, quiet period, marking the end of a long chapter in my life. I thought I'd feel relief, maybe even joy. But no. Something low and dull stirred in my chest. Not regret, not sadness, just a quiet storm of emotion. We had once been husband and wife, shared a home, a bed, a child. Even if the love was gone, even if he had hurt me over and over again, those years still happened. They are part of me, part of my history, and in that moment, my heart ached for my daughter. Ellie would grow up without memories of her parents together. She would learn to be strong earlier than most kids. She would understand her mother's pain. Far too young. I sighed and gently set the phone down. The soft nightlight cast a warm glow on her sleeping face. Her hair spilled across the pillow, lips slightly parted, chest rising and falling in, peaceful rhythm. I reached out and gently stroked her cheek. I'm sorry, Ellie, but I promise, things will be different from now on. One day she'll understand that I didn't leave out of selfishness. I left to protect her, and to protect myself. I turned to look out the window. The city was still alive, glowing, moving. People were still living, still loving, still letting go, and beginning again. And so was I. Tomorrow I would close the door on a failed marriage. But I would also open the first page of a new journey, one built on faith, on independence, on hope. I'm no longer the girl I used to be. I'm no longer the woman waiting for someone to give her happiness. I've learned how to give that to myself. The next day we finalized the divorce as planned. I didn't look back at Matthew Blake, didn't say a word. That afternoon when I returned to the farmer's market, Ellie had arrived before me and was already playing with some of the vendors. Caleb Brooks saw me come in late and asked how things were. When I told him I was looking for a place to rent, he offered, "If you don't mind, you can stay at my place for now. It's a 3-bedroom house. After my parents passed, it's just me living there. It's close to the market. Rent's cheap, think about it." I wasn't superstitious, and nothing about it felt off, especially since I had come to know Caleb as a genuinely good person, honest and decent. So I nodded and signed the rental agreement right then and there. Some of the vendors nearby started whispering, teasing again. This time, I didn't react. Just smiled, like I no longer had the energy to explain anything to anyone. That evening, with Caleb's help, I moved all my things into his house. The next night, I was in the kitchen preparing dinner when I heard keys. Turning in the front door, I stiffened a little. Caleb had told me he'd be out tonight, on a date, with his new boyfriend, said he wouldn't be back. Holding the kitchen knife just in case, I stepped into the living room and froze when I saw the person who had just walked in. "Caleb Stone? Grace Taylor?" he echoed, just as stunned. We both spoke at once. "What are you doing here? What are you doing here?" I looked around the house, then suddenly recalled a name. "Wait, are you Caleb Brooks's older brother? Phuong Vien Son?" He nodded with a smile. "That's right. After being reunited with my family, I started using my real name again." I exhaled slowly. No wonder he'd seemed so familiar when I first met Caleb Brooks. But Caleb said he's the only one living here now. I don't live here anymore. I moved out when I got married 6 years ago. Just dropped by tonight to pick up some of my parents' old books. "Oh, then go ahead. You too. Carry on with whatever you are doing," he said with a polite nod, disappearing into the back room. I returned to the kitchen, flipping the food in the pan. When I came out carrying the dishes, I stopped again. There he was, Caleb Stone, sitting on the floor by the coffee table playing Ludo with Ellie. The sight felt unreal, so warm, so unexpectedly gentle. Fragments of childhood memories came rushing back when Caleb and I used to laugh like that, before we became rivals. Back then, some kids teased us, saying we looked good together, like we had husband and wife energy. We both snapped and declared, I'd never like them. And, just like that, we became enemies. "Ellie, dinner's ready," I called out, then turned to Caleb. "You should probably head home now, right?" He chuckled and began putting the board game away. "It's all right. I'll stay and eat with you. I'll help set the table." I paused, then asked, almost reflexively, "Don't you have dinner at home with your wife?" At that, Caleb went still. A beat passed before he replied quietly, "My wife passed away 4 years ago. She was on assignment overseas." I was stunned. I remembered Caleb Brooks once mentioned his sister-in-law, saying they were very happy. I hadn't known. She was gone. "I'm sorry." "It's okay. You didn't know. So, shall we eat?" "Yeah. Let me help." During dinner we started with small talk, but somehow we drifted back to the old days. The childhood, spats, the times I hid his notebooks, the times he teased me in front of the whole class, the way we argued over grades, over who was better, over being too much alike. We laughed so hard we could barely breathe. As Caleb got up to leave, Ellie tugged at my sleeve and whispered, "Mom, I wish he was my dad instead." I looked at Caleb's back as he walked to the door. My heart ached a little. Truth is, back then, when the kids teased us, I pushed back so hard because I was embarrassed, because someone had accidentally touched a hidden thought, the innocent dream of a little girl, that maybe, someday, when we were older, I wanted to marry Caleb Stone. A month later, Matthew Blake and I received our divorce certificate. A few days after that, I heard he'd just landed a big contract and registered for marriage with Vanessa Moore. Their wedding was extravagant, lavish, a spectacle, and when I heard the news, I felt nothing. Strange, isn't it? The human heart really is unpredictable. One day, you think you love someone so deeply it might kill you. The next, you feel nothing at all. Turns out, letting go can happen in the blink of an eye. The next time I heard anything about Matthew was 3 years later. By then, the organic supermarket I'd opened with Caleb Brooks was doing well. Our monthly net revenue had surpassed $20,000. We weren't rich, but it was several times what I used to earn selling vegetables at the street market. I knew life for me and my daughter could only get better from here. That day, the wife of one of Matthew's old friends, Rachel Morgan, came to shop at our store. She spotted me instantly and rushed over, eyes gleaming with gossip. I wasn't particularly interested, but Rachel loved exposing people, especially Matthew, whom she'd never liked. "Did you hear? Matthew went bankrupt," she whispered, barely able to hide her glee. 6 months ago, his company crashed. Overspending. He and Vanessa burned through money like crazy, debt piling on top of debt. I didn't look surprised. I just nodded politely. "Not only that," Rachel continued, "last month he got into a car accident. Fractures in multiple places. He's bedridden now, and no one's taking care of him." My brow furrowed slightly. After marrying Vanessa, they kicked his parents out, sent them back to the countryside. They died from gas poisoning. No one found them until summer. The bodies were full of maggots. I tightened my grip on the bag of produce in my hand. "What about Vanessa?" I asked. "Divorced him, right after the company collapsed. Now she's living with some real estate guy." Rachel leaned in, eyes glinting. "Here's the kicker. People say Vanessa was never forced to break up with Matthew back in the day like she claimed. Truth is, she dumped him, said his family was too poor." I stayed quiet. Then I laughed. Genuinely. Rachel laughed too. So Matthew really was a hopeless romantic. Just picked the wrong person. Karma, right on schedule. A few weeks later, I got a call from the hospital. It was Caleb Stone, now police chief. He told me the hospital had been trying to reach someone close to Matthew, and I was the only person they could find. "He doesn't have long," Caleb said. "He has to see you and your daughter one last time." I hesitated, but I went. I arrived at the hospital. Matthew Blake was lying there, thin, frail, a shadow of the ambitious, arrogant man he once was. Now he was just a shell. The scent of old wounds, bed sores, and slow decay lingered faintly around him. When I stepped into the room, his eyes lit up for a brief moment. "Grace, you really came?" He tried to sit up but couldn't. His gaze shifted past me. "Where's Ellie?" "She didn't come." I didn't answer. I quietly sat down in the chair beside him, pulled an apple and a small knife from my bag, and began peeling. Silence settled over the room. Only the sound of the blade brushing against the smooth skin of the apple filled the space. "In the end, it's still you," Matthew murmured. "Out of everyone I was ever good to, only you came." I didn't look up, just kept peeling. He sighed, voice hoarse and ragged. "Grace, I'm sorry." My hand paused, but I said nothing. I'm sorry for the things I said. The things I did. I was wrong. Wrong from the very beginning. I chose you because it felt safe. And when I hurt you, it was because I was a coward. I thought you'd never leave. I got too used to your sacrifices, your patience, your silence. I placed the peeled apple in his hand. He took it, bit into it slowly, and gave a weak smile. Still sweet, just like back then. I nodded. I made sure to pick the same kind. Matthew stared at me, surprised. I don't really remember. I smiled faintly. "Of course you don't. Back then, we were just co-workers. You only came to the hospital because the whole group did. But you were the only one who peeled an apple for me." He froze, his skeptical look shifting into quiet confusion. "Grace, did you really love me that much?" "I did." One word. Simple. Complete. He bowed his head, hands clenched tightly, his voice trembling. "I destroyed everything. Our family, you, Ellie. I thought I was smart enough to control everything. But all I ever did was ruin it." I stood up, slowly. "Grace, wait." I stopped walking. If things had been different, if I hadn't made so many mistakes, would you have still loved me? I turned and looked at him one final time. "No, Matthew. What we had is in the past. I did love you. Truly. But maybe it's because I loved you so deeply that I now understand. Love alone can't fix neglect, selfishness, or betrayal." He opened his mouth to say something, but I spoke first. "I came today only to thank you for peeling that apple for me once." Then I walked away. The door closed softly behind me. My footsteps echoed, steady, certain, at peace, and behind me, a man wept quietly in a hospital bed, once the center of my world, now just a fading memory, and his tears had come far too late. I walked out of the hospital room without looking back. The door closed behind me, sealing off a chapter full of chaos and old wounds. My footsteps echoed softly in the cold white hallway. As light as my heart now felt, I wasn't angry, I wasn't in pain, and I no longer felt regret. Some things, once broken, can never be mended, no matter how deep the remorse. And some people, once let go, can never return to where they once stood. Matthew Blake had once been my youth, my mistake, my lesson, and now he was nothing more than a quiet full stop in the book of my life. I didn't come to forgive. I didn't come to hold on to anything. I came to close the past, on my own terms, and then to move forward. Outside the hospital doors, the evening light fell gently. I took a deep breath. The breeze was soft, the sky wide. Ellie was waiting for me at home. A warm dinner was waiting, and a good man, patient, kind, was still waiting for me to come back. Life may have taken us down the wrong turns at times, but as long as we keep walking, we can still find our way to peace. That evening when I got home, Ellie was in the study doing her homework. Caleb Brooks and his boyfriend were setting the dinner table. The moment he saw me, Caleb grinned, from ear to ear. "Grace, come eat. Quick. My brother got off work early today. He's in the kitchen making your favorite, sweet and sour ribs." I peeked into the kitchen. Caleb Stone, wearing a gray striped apron, was standing by the stove, flipping ribs with a wooden spatula. Steam billowed upward, curling into the range hood above. Suddenly, a soft, steady warmth rose in my chest. It's been a year since Caleb and I officially started dating. And yet, every so often that feeling would sneak up on me again, filling me in the quietest, gentlest way. I remembered the day he confessed. We had talked about the past. And that's when I found out. He had felt the same way I did. All those years ago, just two confused teenagers, caught off guard by feelings they weren't ready for, saying the wrong things, trying to deny what hit too close to home. It wasn't just our looks, our personalities were uncannily alike too. Worried that our bond might have become some bizarre twist of foster fate, we even got a DNA test done, just to be sure. Once we confirmed we weren't biologically related, we could finally be at peace and be together. "You're home?" Caleb turned, noticing me by the kitchen door. "Wash up and come eat." He smiled, his voice as easy and light as a summer breeze. I walked up behind him and wrapped my arms around his waist. He froze for a second, then laughed. "What's this? Bad day? You need my shoulder?" I buried my face into his back and shook my head. "No, I'm not sad, just not happy either." "That makes sense," he said quietly. "Someone who used to be a part of your life is almost gone. Now, you've got a big heart. It's okay to feel a little off." I shook my head again. "It's not about him. I'm just scared." Scared. He turned to face me, placing his hands gently on my shoulders. "Scared of what?" I looked up into his eyes. "I'm scared of the unexpected, of how unpredictable life is, scared that one day we'll end up like Matthew and me." Caleb was quiet for a moment. Then he pulled me into a tighter hug. His voice trembled slightly, maybe thinking of the wife he lost. "That won't happen, Grace. We're going to be okay. No more bad things for either of us. I promise." I patted his back gently, as if comforting both of us. Then I looked up at him and whispered, "Caleb, yeah? Let's get married." He froze. You mean it?" In the last 6 months, Caleb had proposed to me twice. Both times I said no. Not because I didn't love him, but because I wasn't ready, because the wounds from before had made me too afraid to believe in marriage again, even though I knew he was nothing like Matthew Blake. But after seeing Matthew one last time, I finally understood. Life is short. And if you can still love, then love with your whole heart. I looked him in the eyes and said it again, firmly. "I mean it, Caleb. Let's get married." Yeah, I can finally call Uncle Caleb Dad. Ellie poked her head in from the living room, shouting with joy. I blushed and let go of Caleb quickly. From behind her, Caleb Brooks peeked in too, his grin stretching ear to ear. "You two keep doing your thing. I'll take care of the cleanup." Then he swooped Ellie up like a sack of potatoes. Uncle Caleb, put me down. I don't want to be a third wheel. Exactly why I'm carrying you off." Caleb and I burst into laughter. He pulled me close again, wrapping his arms around me. Outside the window, the city lights shimmered, in sync with the rhythm of my heart. And for the first time in years, I truly felt it. Peace. If this story found its way into a quiet corner of your heart, I'd love to know. Feel free to share your thoughts. Sometimes even a few words can make someone feel less alone. And if you'd like to keep walking with me through stories of love, healing, and second chances, you're always welcome to subscribe. only if it feels right. Thank you, truly, for being here. Until we meet again in the next story, take gentle care of your heart.